Good afternoon, evening, or middle of the night from wherever you are calling. I am Patricia Miloslavich. I will be your host for today as a surprise because Anna will be giving the presentation on behalf of Clive, who unfortunately had a medical um, emergency. So this is the first of a series of webinar on introducing GOOS, the Global Ocean Observing System, Biology and Ecosystem Essential Ocean Variables, and Data Management. So as I said, there's a change to this webinar. Instead of Clive McMahon, Ana Lara Lopez will be presenting, and we also have Elizabeth Lawrence. So this webinar kicks a series about GOOS BioEco EOVs, Essential Ocean Variables. From now on, I will call them EOVs. It's a collaboration with GOOS, the Global Observing System, the Marine Biodiversity Observation Network, or ENBON, Air Centers Networking, and the European Union project BioEco Ocean. Along the second half of this year, we'll have a series of webinars, each of them focusing on specific BioEco EOVs. Today, then, we have two speakers. One is Ana Lara Lopez, who is the GOOS BioEco Panel International Project Officer based here in Hobart, Australia. Anna is a biological oceanographer. She has experience in fisheries acoustics and fish ecology from estuaries to the deep water. She has worked in academia as well as industry as an environmental consultant and also on government and fisheries management. Over the last 10 years, Anna has been working with ocean observing systems at the national level, first with Australia's Integrated Marine Observing System, then at the regional level with EuroGOOS, and now she's working globally with the Global Ocean Observing System BioEco Panel, leading and facilitating the work of this panel and the development of and implementation of the BioEco EOVs. That's Anna, and our second speaker is Dr. Elizabeth Lawrence, who is the Capacity Development Officer for the Ocean Biodiversity Information System, or OBIS, and the Horizon Europe project BioEco Ocean. Her background is in ecology and biodiversity science, and this has helped her jump feet first into the world of ocean observing data and standards. In OBIS, she is responsible for creating, maintaining, and updating the training courses, including the OBIS manual, the OBIS Ocean Teaching Global Academy training courses, and the how-to videos on data formatting and control vocabulary for the OBIS YouTube channel. She's been with OBIS for a little over 3 years now. And within BioEco Ocean project, her role extends from capacity development to also include data management, including developing tools to facilitate management of data and metadata. And she's based in Montreal. So before I give Anna the floor, I'll just give a brief introduction to the framework of essential variables, for which I will be sharing quickly my screen. Yeah, and while I do that, very quickly about me, I am, well, many, you may know me, some of you, Patricia Miloslavich. I'm a retired professor from Universidad Simón Bolívar in Caracas, Venezuela, where I taught marine biology for more than 25 years. Moved to Australia to be the international project officer, founding the BioEco panel for the Global Ocean Observing System. Then became the executive director of SCORE, the Scientific Committee on Oceanic Research, and now I'm in the Australian Antarctic Division leading the East Antarctic Monitoring Program. So it's been a lot about observations and marine. So let's see, share. So as for framework, just checking, can you see my screen there? Good, good. So I'm going to start then by providing a little bit of context of the frameworks for essential variables, and what you have on the screen is basically based on the framework for ocean observing, in which the observations are required for international, national, and regional obligations to support a resilient, sustainable, and healthy ocean. Observations then provide decision support tools for operational services, management, and assessments to a series of different stakeholders, including your national policies, but also international, like FAO, the WMO, supports the SDGs, and so forth. That data then feeds into the indicators and data products, which then, of course, are then measured through the framework of essential variables. The data then goes into platforms like ODIS or OBIS, the Ocean Biodiversity Information System, and then these feed back into society, to the requirements. For the next slide, then we have the frameworks. It's not just one from GOOS on essential ocean variables. This is one of them, but there's also under the framework of the Global Climate Observing System, or GCOS, which is under the WMO, the framework essential climate variables, and under a third framework, which is the GeoBond, the Group on Earth Observations Biodiversity Observation Network, we have the essential biodiversity variables. All of these are interconnected. It's just the level at which these are measured and how these are articulated into larger frameworks, what varies at different scales. So you go from very detailed biodiversity variables, for example, genetic composition of a population, to essential ocean variables in which you actually define what that population is, if it's a seagrass or a mangrove or corals, to the climate variables in which you go to that next level of marine habitat, which in this case would be, let's say, either plankton or ecosystems like mangroves or seagrasses or coral reefs. So on your left, you have that framework of the essential climate, ocean, biodiversity variables, and how these feed into are harmonized with the essential climate variables, in which, for example, for ocean, you have our ecosystems, which are plankton and both phytoplankton and zooplankton, and the marine habitat properties, which are these ecosystems of seagrasses, mangroves, corals, and mangrove seagrasses and macroalgal communities. So without further delay, I will now I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll introduce then, let Anna talk to us. All yours, Anna.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully you can see it. Hello, everyone. And as you heard from Patricia, just a little refresher about the different essential variable frameworks. This one is the introductory talk of all that series of webinars that we're going to have in this second half of the year. And in this present talk is going to be a general overview of the GOOS essential ocean variables. So we're going to be focusing on GOOS EOVs, the biology and ecosystem EOVs in particular, through this and the rest of the webinar series that we're going to have, and that it's a collaboration, as Patricia mentioned, with MBON Earth Center and the BioEco Ocean Horizon project. So let's start. Let's see if it works. All right. So why do we need to observe the ocean? Because we cannot manage what we don't know. And ocean observations are key for us to really understand the ocean. And why do we need a global ocean observing system? Because we have one ocean, it is interconnected through ocean currents and even through the movement of the organisms that live within. And it is a vast ecosystem. It is very big. It is challenging as well. And not one single country can actually observe it on its own effectively. So it takes a collaborative effort to observe the ocean so we can understand it, and so we can actually have a healthy ocean and have all the different services that it provides, to have and develop a sustainable blue economy, to be able to have the forecasting and early warning systems that will ensure the safety of the community, develop the different carbon strategies, etc. So the ocean forms, it's a very important ecosystem that helps us regulate the climate. And we need a global ocean observing system as well, so we can all have observations that can be integrated and comparable across different scales and different from different corners of the world. Without that, it will be very difficult to really make an assessment of the health of the ocean and of all the services that it provides to us. So, so the GOOS of the Global Ocean Observing System is, hold on a second. It is sponsored by the IOC UNESCO, but that's the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, as well as the World Meteorological Organization, the UN Environment Program, and the International Science Council. So GOOS 2030 strategy, the vision is to have a truly global ocean observing system that delivers the information for societal benefit, with the mission of leading the ocean observing community to create these partnerships, because this needs partnerships, to grow this integrated, responsive, and sustained observing system that is fit for purpose, and that delivers the information that it's required. So to do that, sorry. GOOS basically sits at that interface. It was created in 1991. It has been serving since then as a critical system for monitoring the state of our oceans, providing the data on essential information needed for sustainable development. And it leads and supports the community of international, regional, and national ocean observing programs and governments. So it actually helps connect all these communities so they can together join the efforts in observing the ocean and provide that information to the users and beneficiaries of that ocean information. So it is that interface where it coordinates these communities, and at the same time it connects that information pipeline to get to the to provide that for decision makers and governments and everyone to use this information. So to date, there are 84 countries that contribute to this global system, and every day it provides thousands of observations there's over 8,000 observing platforms, 13 global observing networks, some of them emerging, and 12 active scientific communities on looking at the BioEco EOVs, which that we know of have over 600 active monitoring networks looking at BioEco EOVs. So, okay. So what are the GOOS essential ocean variables? So this is the framework that GOOS utilizes, that they develop and utilizes to coordinate the different communities. So the aim is to make it easier to measure and collect the information from the ocean, but also, importantly, that these observations that are standardized are easy to compare. So it is very important that we have comparable data and information so we can use this data and make truly global assessments. So what are the EOVs? Are the minimum set of ocean variables that will be used to assess the ocean state and variability of important ocean phenomena or processes. And they provide essential data for applications that support societal benefit. They deliver to three key areas. One is on climate, the other one is operational services, and the other one is ocean health. And the EOVs are basically grouped into different disciplines. So we have the physics and climate EOVs, we have biogeochemistry EOVs, and in this case for us, we have the biology and ecosystem, which is where we're going to be focusing. And the EOVs are described by three key elements. One are the subvariables, which are the basic measurement that you need to collect to estimate the EOV. So number of turtles, for example, as the example here. So, and then the other element is the supporting variables. Those are additional measurements that you collect to give context to your main subvariable. So for instance, if I'm counting turtles or nesting sites for turtles, I would want to know the temperature of the sand, for example. So that will be a supporting variable. And then we also have the derived products, which are outputs that are calculated from the subvariables and other relevant information, and then put together to produce more palatable information that then decision makers and others can utilize. So distribution maps, for instance. So these are the three key elements of the essential ocean variables. And in here you can see the different, the EOVs from the different disciplines. So we have 35 essential ocean variables identified. 13 are in the physics and 8 around biogeochemistry. Then we have 12 biological and ecosystem EOVs. And then at the bottom, you see the cross-disciplinary EOVs. And those are overseen by more than one panel, obviously. So it will be overseen by 2 or 3 panels. And they form the backbone of the sustained and evolving global ocean observing system. So by providing the standardized approach to collect data and share data, all these key ocean variables through that EOV framework will allow to gather and compare this data around the world. So one of the principles that we're actually encourage is the FAIR data principles, and probably Elizabeth is going to be talking a little bit more about those principles, and open data, because when you have data accessible, then it can be used for different purposes. And one of the main mottos that we have is observe once, use many times. So the point of having an ocean data is that it can be used for different purposes, including at the international level, where you can see that the EOVs and the information from the EOVs can then feed into these different international agreements. In ocean health, for example, you have the CBD, the Global Biodiversity Framework, that it's in place. It can provide also information for the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, which has been a recent agreement. But not only does the biology and ecosystem EOVs can fit into that, it can also fit into operational services. And at the moment, we're working a little bit on having real-time biological data. So hopefully this will be finalized, this development soon. And it also can provide important information on climate, particularly on the effects the climate and changing climate has in the ecosystems, because that has a flow-on effect on the services that we receive from the ocean as well. So that's why it is important to have fair, comparable, interoperable data, so that we can actually get to use it for the different purposes. This is at international level, but you can also, the idea is that you can also use it at national level and regional level as well. So upscale and downscale. So how do we work? So we have the GOOS steering committee sitting at the top. They're the ones that are going to be giving some of the strategic direction of the program. And we have the 3 expert panels. So there are panels with international experts that are going to be providing advice to GOOS steering committee about the observations that need to be collected, the information that it's needed on the requirements by society, and the specifications of how to collect those informations. So for the panel, the BioEco panel, we have a panel executive which has 2 co-chairs and an international project officer, that would be me. And then we have panel members. So the panel members, we have 2 panel members, 2 experts per EOV. So it is a big-ish panel. But we use it through these members that GOOS actually connects to all the different networks that are collecting these biological observations. So we use their expertise to provide advice, but also they are the ones that help us connect and talk to the networks that are on the ground collecting ocean observations on coral, on mangrove, and all, etc. So we can better coordinate the way that we collect these observations in a way that we can then compare, that the information is comparable through the use of the EOV framework. We have some cross-disciplinary that we oversee with the other 2 panels, Ocean Color and Ocean Sound. But importantly as well is we work with the other panels because it is important not to have these EOVs looked at it in silos. Integration of the different EOVs is important to produce some of the indicators that are going to be providing information on the ocean and the health of the ocean. So integration of disciplines is also important, that we work also along with the other panels to try to promote that. So GOOS also connects differently using different structures. Regionally, it has the GOOS regional alliances. And so you can see in there in orange 14 regional alliances that GOOS utilizes to understand requirements and capability and capacity at regional level, plus 3 associated organizations which are in green. And it also connects nationally through the GOOS national focal points. There are 81 national focal points. And in that respect, the nations indicate and nominate a national focal point, and they are the ones that are going to provide us information about the national capabilities, any potential gaps, as well as the information requirements. So of the different sectors, because many of the information and most of the observations are collected at national level. And what we're trying to do is using all these structures and the EOV leaders in the different panels to start then coordinating and connecting all these different parts or pieces of the puzzle, so we can then have, a puzzle well connected. So the evolution of the BioEco panel, I'm going to just focus on biology here. So GOOS was created in 1991. You can see in gray in there the first panel that was created was the physics panel. And then in 2000 we have OBIS. So OBIS was established 15 years earlier than us, and they're the main world's ocean biodiversity and biogeographic data and information gateway. So a little bit later, we have the biogeochemistry panel, and then in 2015, we have the GOOS biology and ecosystems panel. So a little bit after that, there is partnership that is formed between ENBN, between the GOOS BioEco panel and with OBIS, so they can pool their expertise and their resources together, join efforts towards a sustained coordinated global ocean observing system. So we share a vision and we are working together to date. We have in 2019 the 2030 strategy that was launched, which I mentioned the vision and mission of that strategy. And it is key to have partnerships, because as I mentioned before, we have one ocean, is vast, no one can do it alone. So we have to really be a collective effort, and there are programs out there also trying to that share this vision, and together we can actually hopefully achieve that. So in here you can see the key alliance. So we actually look after the essential ocean variable framework, while MBON works with GeoBond's essential biodiversity variables, and OBIS is overlooking at the data, ensuring that data standards are followed, and that we have so we can have comparable data that can be utilized for all those different purposes. And we are always constantly working together to try to get to that point. So OBIS is obviously the natural home for all the data of GOOS BioEco, because since its launch, it has grown to become the world's largest open access repository of marine biodiversity data. So you can see currently how many records they have, and I'm not going to delve deep on this because we have Elizabeth after this talk who is going to be providing you all about the data and OBIS. But essentially, they have the standards. They are open and fair. So those are the main principles as well that follows. So the data can be accessible to make all these different products and provide that information. Another tool that we use besides the partnerships that we have and that we have created is the EOV specification sheets. And the next webinars that you will see, not the one later on, which is a repetition of this one, but the further on, you will be knowing a little bit more about the specification sheets. So these are a tool that has been created and developed so we can provide guidance on the best way to collect ocean information so it can be comparable. So this tool has different audiences, so it has been tailored to inform different audiences, and you can see it in there in the pink ovals. So there is high-level information on why that essential variable is important. Why should I care? Why should I take observations of that? Is high level, is for funders and decision makers. So it is a very high-level information part of that specification sheet on why should we care. Then there is other information of the type of, some examples of the type of phenomena that it can capture if you use that EOV, plus some of the specifications of, how ideally an observing system should work and what resolutions we would need that information, plus all the different observing approaches linked to methods, protocol, standard operating procedures. We work very closely as well with our colleagues in the Ocean Best Practice System, who are actually handling best practice and looking at protocols and standard operating procedures, etc. And also importantly, and this is core, and that's why we will also focus on that with Elizabeth's talk. We have a section on data management and information. So if we want the system to work, we need to share data. It needs to be standardized. So it's a step-by-step instructions of how you can submit your data into OBIS and how you can make your program visible through the BioEco portal and ODIS, which is the Ocean Data and Information System. So that's slightly different to OBIS, which is the Biodiversity Information System. So, and there's the diverse applications. So at the moment, we just updated the specification sheets. And we're inviting community input. And I think that is important because if we want to make a tool that is useful and that the community can utilize, we need your input. So we have a consultation going on at the moment. It is open. You can see the QR code in there. If you're an expert in one of these EOVs, we would like to invite you to provide input into these specification sheets. because the better the tool, the more informative it will be. And as I mentioned before, and I will continue to mention, this is a collective effort. So your input is very important. So if you can dedicate about 30 minutes to have a look and provide some review of the specification sheets, please go ahead. And that will be me. Thank you very much for your attention. I want to do just a very quick shout out that we have GOOS, but also behind our EOV leaders that are the ones that are also helping us move forward are these organizations. Some of them, it's not exhaustive, but we want to recognize as well in these that they're also providing some support and vision to the work that we do. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. That was a great introduction to the work of the panel, and a call for action for those here to look into the updated specification sheet, the revised specification sheets, to actually provide feedback. And also, if you're not an expert, please help spread within your communities for those who could actually provide some feedback. So without further ado, let's move on to Elizabeth's presentation.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Making sure sharing my screen. Okay. Great. So as mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Lawrence. I'm part of the OBIS Secretariat, and I will be speaking about how to manage EOV data. So first of all, if the GOOS EOV framework is the backbone of our global ocean observing system, then fair and open access data are the muscles that support that backbone. But what actually makes data fair? We talk about fair a lot, but what does it actually mean? So to summarize each aspect, findable means that there's descriptive metadata with stable links and identifiers that enable finding our data. So this would be like DOIs. Accessible means that there's very clear instructions on how to access our data, and this goes beyond just having available upon request statements. Interoperable means that our data can be easily combined with other data sets and is machine readable. So this usually means using controlled vocabulary and adhering to data standards whenever possible. And reusable means that the metadata associated, and in general, is well documented enough that it enables others to replicate what we've done. And there's also enough context so that users know under what situations our data is useful to be reused in. And you'll also note more and more journals are having data accessibility policies, which requires us to deposit in repositories like Zenodo, Figshare, and Dryad. And this can meet the findable and accessible parts of FAIR. However, there's usually very little requirements on the journal side to make sure that your data is adhering to any particular standard, with the exception of any repository-specific guidelines, of course. So this means that if we're depositing our data in a repository like Zenodo, it might, this means our data isn't automatically FAIR, but it might just be FA. So it's a very important reminder to not forget about the I and the R parts of FAIR. And before I get more into the specifics about data management, I want to show some demonstrations that really demonstrate the power of what FAIR data can do. So this first example is the PAC-MAN project that OBIS was involved in, which is the Pacific Islands Marine Bioinvasions Alert Network. In this project, one of the main results was the development of this decision tool and alert system. So the way it works is it takes species observation data from OBIS as well as GBIF. And whenever a pest species is detected in the monitored area, this sends a detection alert where the detection status can be reviewed using the metadata associated with that to determine our confidence. And then this allows us to make informed decisions on how to deal with the bioinvasion. And this last screenshot shows what the tool kind of looks like and highlighting where the confidence, the risk, and the status is for a particular detection. Another really cool example is the information we can obtain on animal movement in time and space. So this animation I'm showing here is the movement of 4 blue sharks from a data set obtained from the Ocean Tracking Network. The link to the data set's below. And using unique animal identifiers in this way, we can it can be really valuable for marine spatial planning and avoiding ship strikes. And related to this, Anna alluded to this earlier, is work through that OTN and Anibos are working together on. So Anibos is the animal-borne ocean sensors. And they're working to provide near real-time data of animal movement to OBIS within 24 hours. And as she mentioned, this pipeline should be completed soon, I think within a few months, maybe, fingers crossed. And there's a lot of really excellent work with this collaboration. But both of these example projects are only possible when the data and the metadata are effectively documented and made fair. Which leads to the question, how do we actually make sure our data is fair? So there's the 2 main digital platforms that can help you with this within IUC UNESCO. This is, of course, OBIS, and then Anna mentioned ODIS as well. And they're both program components of IODE, the International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange. So I'm going to provide a little bit more context about each of them, starting with OBIS. So OBIS, as to expand on what Anna said, we are also a global community of more than 30 regional and thematic nodes, representing more than 1,000 institutions around the world. And really one of the main value of the OBIS data pipeline is that as a community, we're able to aggregate data sources from many different sources. So aggregate them together, make sure they adhere to a minimum level of quality, and then integrating thousands of data sets into one main data set, publicly releasing it, which provides reliable, actionable, and ready-to-use data. Oops. And ODIS, on the other hand, instead of being a repository, it's a federated system that improves the discoverability of resources using established web architecture, or what we like to call computer language. So it does this using linked data, and it connects resources across the web, kind of like how all these dots are connected. And I just want to note that any data that's published in OBIS is and will be automatically made visible in ODIS. So this, again, really highlights the publish once, harvest many times principle. So now let's take a look at the different components of data that need to be managed. And I find it's easier to break it down into 5 different components rather than thinking of data as like this all-encompassing or an ambiguous thing. So the first 2 components are the data sets and then the metadata, or the information about the data sets. So then this is the information about what variables were measured, what methods you used, whether any endorsed best practices were used or followed, and then importantly, what data standards are used to make sure our data is fair, like Darwin Core, which is the, oh, there's a typo there. Anyways, like Darwin Core, which is the international biodiversity standard that we use at OBIS. And I've highlighted here in this box just some minimum metadata, and data that we should try to make sure we have as a minimum. Next is information about the data producer. So data producers are just the source, the entity that's creating or producing the data. So this would be information on a project, an organization, institution, a lab, or so on. And as a BioEco data producer, we want to make sure that we're visible in the GOOS BioEco portal. So that way others are aware of the important work we're doing. And then we want to make sure that we're managing the information about the people involved, making sure there's proper credit and using identifiers. And finally, any outputs like products, models, model outputs, and so on. We want to make sure all of these are fair. So the next question is like, well, how do we suggest managing these data components? So I've created this relatively simple decision tree flow chart. So starting on the left with people, when we're managing this information, it's relatively straightforward. We just want to make sure all of the people and the organizations have ORCID IDs or some other identifier, like Ocean Expert, and that we're actually using these identifiers in our data and our metadata. When managing our data sets and the associated metadata, one of the first questions you want to ask yourself is, you know where you're going to publish this data? And if you do, or if you don't, we strongly recommend making sure that your BioEco data is being pushed and published to OBIS. And so when we're publishing data to OBIS, we want to make sure, try to align our data with the Darwin Core standard, and we're developing this through the BioEco Ocean project in conjunction with the BioEco panel. Some EOV specific data templates that can be a little bit easier to align to. So we'll look out for those in the future. And then if you have no idea where to start, or you already know where to start and your data is aligned, regardless, like contacting the OBIS Secretariat or an OBIS node can help you publish your data or help you align it. And then the last two components, your data producer metadata and the data outputs, want to make sure that they're visible in ODIS, so that way it's visible in that big network. And if you don't know how to make it visible, then this is where we recommend the use of the EOV metadata app, Anna alluded to as well. So what's really cool is that this will make sure it will make your entry visible in ODIS and the BioEco portal simultaneously. And just to close, so this is a screenshot of that app, the QR code. It's a form-based app. I'm still finalizing a little bit of the back end, so please don't rush to go start submitting things just yet. But if you do want to check it out, I'm very happy to receive any kind of feedback that you can contact me. My email is on there. And yeah, just highlighting that we are working on those data tools. And then to conclude, we at the OBIS Secretariat, this is our team, we're happy to hear from you and answer any questions. That is all.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. That was a very, very informative presentation, both for providers and for users. Let's see, we have the Q&A here. Let's see if we have any questions. So we have a question from Pauline say, do the data in OBIS have a link to the methods that were used in the data collection and management? Does this then have a connection to the Ocean Best Practices system? I think that's for you,
Yes.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I fully have the question. Yes. So data sets, there is a column for called sampling protocol that users can put in a link to to these methods, and if the link goes to ocean best practices, then that should automatically make that connection. I believe there's something similar on the metadata side. So there is a way for users to provide this information. So if it's provided, and we recommend, although it's not a required term, so it's not always populated. But this is something, especially going forwards and in developing, the EOV data recommendations, that we're really wanting to make sure that this information is captured, particularly if there's a connection to OBPS.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
One thing I forgot to say, Patricia, sorry to interrupt, is that in the specification sheets, we are actually adding information on some of the protocols and standard operating procedures that can be utilized to observe different EOVs. And we're also working together with OBIS as well as with Ocean Ops to try to come to a standard sort of control vocabulary when it comes to observing approaches. Ocean Ops essentially is looking at GOOS observing networks such as Argo or the ANIBOS, which was mentioned by Elizabeth, gliders, tide gauges. So and they basically make those the metadata visible. So we're trying to work with them as well, so we can then have these control vocabularies across disciplines.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Anna. There's another question in the chat, in the Q&A by Jonathan Harding Daramy from Sierra Leone. He's asking if can you fund projects or connect projects proposals with funders?
We don't fund projects. However, I think through the Ocean Decade, what they're trying to do is precisely connect different projects and programs to funders. So I would encourage Jonathan to contact people at the Ocean Decade. I think that there might be some contact details in their website. You can email us at goosbioeco@gmail.com with some of those questions, and maybe we can connect you to other communities that might have some, way to orient you.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. To actually add, and also, well, you mentioned the regional alliances, and maybe that's also a starting point to look into and get involved into that network as well. There's a nice message from Andres Rubicek, clapping hands. Thank you all. So thanks for the presenters. I'm not sure I understand Juan Canetes. Yeah, the file will be delivered afterly. Thank you. So I'm not sure about that. Might be the recording he refers to. Is the recording going to be available?
Yeah, it will be available in the YouTube channel for GOOS, and also I think in the YouTube channel for the Air Center, maybe the Networking Fridays, but definitely will be available after for viewing if anyone is interested.
Great. Well, I see no questions and answers in the chat. So and because we're almost near time, I just want to close by.
There is one.
Yeah, sorry, there is one
is there
question.
One?
Yeah, it just popped up.
Sorry.
Just there.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, here from Sashit. Sashit, how will EOVs, variables, and subvariables be published and included in Darwin Core archive?
I think that's for me. Hi, Sachet. It's a good question. So I think like a lot of the variables and subvariables are already being measured And so it'll just be like a mapping of controlled vocabulary and making sure EOV, especially EOV specific work, is tagged with the EOV keyword. And I think Envo is developing the controlled vocabulary for the EOVs. We're still figuring exactly that out so far, but yeah, it'll be included like just any other kind of data, and we'll just make sure that there's controlled vocabulary.
Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth. Well, Jonathan is rephrasing the same question he made before about funding, and I think that has been covered by Anna. So reach out to GOOS BioEco's project officer for questions, but she'll encourage you to look at the UN Decade and also reach out to your regional alliance. Yeah, so now there's not much more popping. So yeah, so basically for those who are listening, we heard today the framework on essential variables and all the data implications that it comes along with it. So there's two messages here. We both for providers of data and for users of data. For those who are providers, please, if you're going to be collecting data, please be aware that these frameworks exist. Use the essential variables as framework of what information needs to be collected, because this is information that has been standardized and it addresses societal requirements. Please also look into the best practices, because there are methods that have been approved by the community to collect that data. Encourage everyone to have your ORCID identifier, and of course use the OBIS Darwin Core as the data standard to actually empty and download your information. For the users, well, there's many resources that you can use, tools that you can access through OBIS. There's many online courses. If you need more information, you can reach out to Elizabeth. And for everyone here, encourage you as an action to take a look at the essential variables specification sheet for biology and ecosystem. If you are an expert in any of them, please provide feedback. And if you know of people who are experts in any of them, please pass this request to them as well. And with that, I think we're reaching the time, and I would like to thank once again to Anna and Elizabeth for their amazing presentations. Very informative, and the recording will be available. Their information and contact has been provided, so please, if you have any questions, please reach out to them to follow up. And with that, I think we are done. If Anna or Elizabeth want to say a few final messages.
Just remember that open, fair data is very important, and the impact of your data will be, 10 to 20-fold more impact if you share it, because it will feed into very different systems and for very different needs. Comparable data can be demonstrated the benefit. So we have weather forecasting. You can see how open, fair data can help. We need that for ocean biodiversity.
Thank you, Anna. Elizabeth, anything else from you?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo kind of what Anna's saying. Yeah, fair, making sure you're meeting all 4 aspects of fair is important. And if you don't know where to start, we're here to help. There's a whole community in GOOS and in OBIS, and we're very we're very willing to help or point you in the right direction. So
yeah, the EOVs can help you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, thanks again, and thank you all for attending. And be attentive to the next webinars coming that will be focused on specific EOV. So, as you heard from Anna, there's a whole range from microbes to plankton to fish to different ecosystems. So, if I encourage you to be also attentive to these and attend them and spread the word. Well, thank you, everyone, and see you on the next time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.